In 1995, a group of 14 wolves arrived at Yellowstone National Park from Alberta, Canada. This historic reintroduction of a species which had been absent for nearly 70 years was the result of tireless effort on the part of many organizations, including the National Wildlife Federation. The NWF has followed the recovery of the wolf with great interest and enthusiasm. After the enormous success of their large-format film Whales, the film and television production branch of the organization looked to the wolf as their next subject.
We have made a number of films on wolves before for television. The way this wolves large format film differs is that it's a much more immersive, much more immediate, much more visceral, much more image-driven experience than it would be on television.
There is a great deal of curiosity, which is, I think, satisfied only by IMAX, because it is the only medium which can satisfy the viewer in terms of really believing that they've now seen a wolf.
David Douglas has devoted his life to large-format filmmaking. His work as a cinematographer and director has taken him across the globe, from the Academy Award-nominated Fires of Kuwait to the Antarctic vistas of Survival Island. Together with wife and associate producer Di Roberts, he has set the standard for bringing exotic and rare wildlife to the IMAX screen. With wolves, David was faced with the challenge of filming an animal that has been linked to animosity and controversy for centuries.
Wolves have been surrounded by mystery and by fear for many years. Really, that comes from the Europeans who came to this country in the end of the 16th and 17th century and brought with them this incredible fear and loathing of wolves.
For me, it was a matter of doing the research which revealed to me that just how unfounded and ill-informed I had been by the kind of mythology that our culture puts over on people with regard to the wolf.
Along with leading wolf specialists and biologists, David and his team attempted to outline the regions where wolves could be filmed in their natural habitat. Their search took them to some of the most stunning landscapes in North America, from the frozen tundra of Alaska, through the wildlife reserves of eastern Canada, down to the plains of central Idaho and to Montana, where the wolf recovery effort began.
In order to make a film about wolves, you've got to find some wolves. And in fact, the most visible wolves in the world are the ones which have now been reintroduced in Yellowstone Park. So, and that whole process of putting something back into nature, bringing the top predator back into that ecosystem, the importance of that activity as a scientific experiment, because it is very definitely a test tube sort of environment where wolves have now been reintroduced in a place where they have been missing for generations.
Finding wolves in the wild is not an easy task, let alone doing so with the world's largest cameras and 900 kilos of equipment. For this film, David and his team reduced their necessary gear to a minimum in order to follow subjects which can move up to 50 miles a day. The result of careful planning and perseverance eventually paid off, as they managed to capture dramatic and intimate footage of wolves, behaving in a way rarely seen by most people.
Certainly this film is different from many others in that it is not just a biology film. It's a film about the history of two species in a way, men and wolves, and it gets quite specific in addressing the kind of relationship that gets produced when we brutalize animals. I mean, the reality is that wolves were exterminated in a brutal and relentless way, which has many parallels, and those parallels include other species, including the buffalo, and also including the human beings that inhabited the West, the Native Americans.
The history of the wolf is so tied up with the history of Native Americans. Native Americans were hunted down and killed by the white man. Wolves have been hunted down and killed by the white man. Native Americans view the wolf as a brother, as a teacher.
The process of healing, which has been started now by the reintroduction campaign that's going on in the Western states, and the fact that it is being, at least in part, conducted by Native Americans on their own turf, I think is a powerful and an emotional example for everybody.
Even though there's a growing appreciation among the public that it's important to protect wolves and to restore them to their natural place in the world, there's still tremendous animosity and hatred and fear of wolves. This film is important because it will help educate people about the real and proper role of wolves in the natural world.
We are in the midst of a program to reintroduce a keystone wildlife species back into the West, to begin to address what it means to live with wolves, what it means to give them the space that they need to have to survive, and what a tremendous umbrella that creates for other species.
National Wildlife Productions is the film, television, video, and large format arm of the National Wildlife Federation. The National Wildlife Federation is a conservation group. It's the largest member group in the country. It has over 4 million members and supporters, and our goal is to promote conservation. And the role of National Wildlife Productions, which I head up, is to produce mass media programs that promote the mission of NWF. One of the important things about this film is that this project is far more than the film. With the education program, the huge education program that accompanies it, and all the outreach which goes with it, this film is a film plus just a huge program of education about the natural world that I think teachers and men and families are going to find very rewarding.
We have kind of a unique setup for Kwani, and we did that primarily because she is a lone wolf, and wolves are real social animals. And since she is not living with other wolves, Bruce and I and her dog companion Indy are her social unit, her pack. Kwani was interesting during this whole filming process because I was really quite sure she'd be really afraid of the IMAX camera. It's a large camera and it makes a lot of noise. Instead, she really seemed pretty interested in it, in the whole thing. And at one point, they were setting up for the scene of her crossing the log, and she was up there. We were up there with her on a leash, and they had all their stuff setting around, and you know, she was waiting for her scene basically, and she just really did seem like she knew she was kind of the important person on the set. And she went around investigating everything and then hopped in the back of their U-Haul truck that they were carrying their equipment in and dug out a popsicle or something that they had. And then went over and managed to, when nobody was looking to, which was pretty funny, managed to lift her leg and urinate on one of the camera bags and then quickly moved off. So, I mean, she was just, she really seemed to be enjoying herself that day.
Wolves are neophobic animals. They don't like new things, and this was all brand new stuff. So it was just quite amazing that Kwani would come down and act as she did, and as Dave was not only hoping, but he expected her to. And she took a real liking to David. Part of that might have been because at the time he had his beard, and she thinks that hair on the face does make sense. So a guy with hair on his face has a higher rank in her eyes.
David and Di and us discussed quite a bit what we could and couldn't do with Kwani and what would be appropriate. And Bruce and I both felt that it was important, and they did too, to actually film her doing the work that she does and that we do. And so we did set up a couple of school programs, and they filmed as we did our regular school programs.
The area I work is called the Laurentide Reserve. It's situated about an hour north of Quebec City. It's an 8,000 square kilometer reserve, which is divided into 111 trapping territories. A reserve is not like a park, and within a reserve you have logging, hunting, trapping, fishing. It's not like a park where there's no exploitation. The reason the ministry wanted to study this population is because, first of all, through data they get from moose hunters, it was thought that the wolf population might be declining. A second reason for the study was they also wanted to study the effects of ecotourism. Everyone knows that hunting and trapping is declining, and ecotourism is becoming the new way to kind of utilize our wildlife. And what the ministry wanted to know is, with all these companies springing up left and right, taking people into the woods and howling to them, to figure out whether or not this has an effect on their behavior. So those were the two main goals of the project, and among that there were smaller goals like dietary habits, other behavioral effects, mortality, etc. The method used most often for wolf captures in the summer is leg hole traps. However, the ones that we used are modified. They're a leg hole trap that you buy. However, there's about a dozen modifications that are made to it. And what that does is it ensures that once the wolf steps in the trap, the rubber that's around the jaws will not break the skin, and it also won't stop circulation. So the wolf is stuck in the trap. It can't get out, but it's not hurt. We've caught 65 wolves for the project in the Laurentide Reserve, and we've never had to do stitches and never even had swelling. We're probably one of the very few or only biologists that capture wolves without using tranquilizers. Most of the time, if you handle wolves correctly, because they're social animals, you don't need to use tranquilizers. It's really to the best advantage of the animals not to be drugged.
David et Peter avaient déjà fait une sélection musicale assez élaborée.
David and Peter Tilley, the sound designer, had already worked out an elaborate vision for the music.
Il y a un morceau de Robbie Robertson.
They knew there would be a piece in there from Robbie Robertson, who is also the narrator of the film, and one from a group called Sacred Spirits.
Donc, dès le départ, il y a des instruments.
From the beginning, we all agreed that we wanted authentic Native American sounds. So we've tried to use organic, natural instruments. We've tried to get a real mix of sounds that one would associate with the regions where wolves are actually found.